At this time, we'll bring our meeting to order. And so I'll ask everyone, please turn all cell phone devices to the silent position as we, as the meeting commences. Ms. James, I'll
Yes.
yield to you.
Mr. Mayor, this morning we have Mayor Pro Tem Davis, Councilmember Heath, and Councilmember Portis Jones in attendance.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, then, I'll ask, in this case, the staff, would you come forward?
Mayor, if I could, before the staff member comes forward, I just wanted to mention that this is our public hearing on the fiscal year 23-24 millage rate. We have this public hearing to allow citizens to have discussion with regards to the city's setting of the millage rate. The city of Fairburn is proposing to keep the millage rate for the fiscal year of 23-24 at the same as the current fiscal year. The current millage rate is 8.10 mils for regular millage and 1.46 for general obligation bond indebtedness, for a total of 9.56 mils. And presenting this morning will be our senior accountant, Ms. Keisha Baker.
Ms. Baker.
Good morning, Mayor and council members.
Good morning.
Good morning. What is the millage rate and why is it important? The millage rate is the tax rate used to calculate local property taxes. When multiplied against the assessed value of taxable property, it calculates the amount of property tax to be paid. It represents the amount per $1,000 of the property's assessed value. For example, a mill rate of 8 mills equals $8 per $1,000 of assessed value. An example of that would be a home that's valued at $200,000. The assessed value of that home would be $80,000. So that mill rate at $8 per thousand would be 8 times the 80,000, equaling $640 as the tax bill. The city must set a mill rate that provides sufficient revenue to support the maintenance and operations of the city for the new fiscal year. How are taxes assessed? Taxes are assessed at 40% of the fair market value, as I just recently explained. A house at $20,000, $40,000 of that would be $80,000. So taxes are assessed at 40% of the assessed value of the home. Property owners that do not agree with this assessed value on their proposed assessment may file an appeal to the County Board of Equalization, hearing officers, or arbitration. What are the rollback rates? Each year, the Fulton County Board of Tax Assessors is required to review and assess value of taxable property in the county for taxing purposes. When the trend of prices on properties that have recently sold in the county indicate there has been an increase in the fair market value of any specific property, the Board of Tax Assessors is required by law to evaluate the value of such property and adjust the assessment. When the total digest of taxable property is prepared, Georgia law requires that the rollback millage rate be computed that will produce the same total revenue on the current year's digest that the last year's millage rate produced. If the city does not take the rollback rate, this must be advertised as a tax increase, even if the city does not increase their tax rate. This slide represents an example of the rollback rate versus the current millage rate. This is also assuming that your taxes, the assessed value stays the same from year to year. We have a property that has a fair market value of $200,000, looking at the current millage rate. 40% of that would be the assessed value, showing at $80,000. So that would be the taxable value. We will multiply that amount times our current millage rate, which is 0.00956, or 9.56%. That would make the current property taxes $764.80. If the city takes the rollback rate at a fair market value of $200,000 with an assessed value of $80,000, the taxable of $80,000 taxable rate The rollback rate would be multiplied by the $80,000 at 0.00879 or 8.79%, and the tax bill would equal $703.20. This would be a difference of $61.60.
At this time, I would now open the public hearing for anyone that wished to speak on the millage rate. Anyone that wants to come forward, sir.
Good morning, Mayor
Morning.
and City Council.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can't thank you guys enough for what you do.
Excuse me, can I get your
Can't
name?
thank you guys enough for what you do here.
Hold on one second, sir. Can we get your name and number for the record?
Marvin Nash. And I'm a resident here in Fairburn, been so for 21 years. 985 Trotters Farm Road. Anything else?
Go ahead.
Okay,
All
go
right,
ahead, sir.
again, I want to thank you again, Mayor, City Council, for the work that you guys put in. I've done it on a small scale before, being the president of a HOA, so I know it can be a headache sometimes. Sometimes it's just a thankless job, so I want to be the first to thank you all. My reason for coming again is to address the millage rate in regards to that. I decided I need to come up because, you know, you get a lot of people don't really know what's going on. You get false information, so I like to get it straight from the source. So my question was, I did hear your presentation about how you determine the millage rate. When we look at millage rates and taxes, normally I would like to speak to the neighbors, but sometimes people not. So luckily we can go on the internet and we can see these things. I don't know how precise the numbers are, but my value is showing where I'm paying much larger taxes than my neighbors. But their property is valued at a higher cost than my cost. So according to the presentation we just heard, if it's 40% of your gross, what your property's worth, my property should be lower than my fellow neighbors, but it's not. So again, as I mentioned to a city commissioner, when I make home improvements, I get permits. That's the way we do things. That's the proper way. So I know there's a way that you can see the home improvements that I've done. So I figured maybe that's why my rates were higher, because some people put up a gate, they might not even let nobody know. They probably put it up with no permit. So they're getting assessed at a different value. Every time I make a home improvement, it's going to increase the value of my property. So my question is, how is that millage rate? Is it determined also by how many home improvements I do and permits that I legally get the right way? And why is my property taxes sufficiently higher than my next door neighbors when their property is assessed at their property is worth more money than mine?
It's a very good question, Mr. Nash. So a couple of things. I know you and I had a chance to chat briefly, but I'll share a little bit more detail. You would of how to get to the county's website or the Fulton County Tax Assessor to do that. Most of that I would defer to the county because they do that process. I will tell you that there are several factors that typically go into the value of your property. It is to some degree based on the value of properties in your community, in your neighborhood, the surrounding area, but it is also connected to something you just mentioned, which is as you make improvements to your home, you know, if you were to, you know, finish your basement or add a fence or do various improvements to your home, those could also be factors in the assessed value. And so I'll pause there because it's not my area of expertise, but what I would encourage you to do is if you feel like, hey, I'm not quite sure my property is valued properly, then I would encourage you to reach out to the county tax assessor's office so that they can take you through that appeal process, and then you'll have a chance to have a detailed conversation with them about what you feel is a more accurate assessment of your property. And that's what, in this instance, is likely driving your increase to your tax bill. Because as we covered in that presentation, and you and I chatted a little earlier, the millage rate has remained consistent. And so any increase is because of that assessment. And then again, you can't appeal that.
Okay, and I did know about the appeal. They normally would send a notice out and they would give you 45 days to appeal. With the recent events and everything coming, that happened, I don't remember even seeing that letter. It usually be a letter come out to give you an estimate of the assessments. You can do that appeal thing, but what I did found out also with the appeal process is that you still, and it's no problem for me, you're still on the hook. You still have to pay whatever they say you owe them, see? And again, luckily for me, I could still do that. So if they charging me an outrageous fee that I thought was unfair, I would still have to pay that to still put the appeal in from my understanding. So again, I'm dealing with two property taxes. I'm dealing with county and city. I've been here 21 years. My city tax has never came close to my county. So it's like my city taxes I don't think it should ever outweigh the county. I mean, it's getting to a point where they're starting to balance out almost. So I know something's wrong because I've been here a long time. I mean, I just have to figure out what it is and deal with it.
And then again, that's why that, conversation with the Fulton County tax assessors to see, is there something that is not being assessed correctly on your particular property? One other thing that you mentioned is you do the right thing, which is whenever you make an improvement to your home, you come in and get a permit. So I did want to let you know that the city and the city council has approved a lot of investment into our code enforcement division. It is functioning at a much more productive level now than it may have been in the past. We've added additional staff to that area. We've added a new code enforcement manager, a new director of that department. We don't catch every violation, I wouldn't tell you that, but we do try to stay on top of them as much as we can. And so whenever we find a homeowner who has not followed the process, we are addressing that through our code enforcement division so that everyone I wished would do what you did and do the right thing, but we all know that that doesn't always happen. So we are investing in that area as well so that we can deal with those issues also.
Yeah, and that's super important. That's one of the reasons why I stepped down from being head of our HOA. It's kind of hard to tell people how to take care of property, but there's rules involved, and we live in the subdivision. We like our own little city in a city, if you will. So I tell people all the time, not only do you have to get a city permit, you got to go through this association to make sure we keep them with the aesthetics of the community. And it doesn't always sit right with people, so we dealing with a situation now where a person just decided to throw up a gate and didn't know where their property lines were. Even though I had maps of the whole community and I sent the lady the boundaries on the phone, she still put up what she wanted to put up, and now she's in it's a big kerfuffle over there. Everybody trying to figure out what's going on. But again, I'm just trying to understand the millage rate, and the presentation that she just presented sheds a lot of light on it because I know now it's 40% of what my total property was assessed for. I was just trying to figure out, my whole thing was, why is my city taxes? And I know it goes, we want to make Fairburn good, and I'm with you guys. I want to make a place, situation to see and all that, but when the taxes start getting close to my county, I'm like, but again, I've been here 21 years, so I know we're growing. I know we had to fire downtown, I know a lot. So I say, well, I don't mind the increase, I'll just be trying to understand the increase and not hear it from someone else and then get false information. I like this. So I appreciate the presentation. It pretty much answered a lot of my questions. I read that, but read and just be able to interpret it.
And that is on the website, Mr. Nash, so if you want to download that for yourself or share it with any of your neighbors, that presentation.
Okay, I will. Yeah, and again, thanks again, City Council, for your time, Mayor. And I get the word out there. They can go on the website if someone have a question. I want you to give them. I like people to go and I wished I had more people with me to come to these meetings and, just get the right info. So thanks again.
I'm going to close the public hearing, then I'm going to ask Mr. Davis for a point of
There's
clarity.
also a copy of the presentation at the door.
Okay.
Sir, before he leaves, Tony, before he leaves, I got a point of clarity, but I need to close the public hearing first. I will now officially close the public hearing. Mr. Davis, you got a point of clarity, and I want to make sure that you can bring it to the.
Yes, in reference to Mr. Nash and Mr. Phillips, in reference to the appeal, that you can appeal to Fulton County, you have an option when you do your appeal to either pay 85% of the taxes that they're saying that you owe now, or 100%. So not necessarily 100%. They allow you to pay 85% if you appeal, okay? So that's an option that you do have. And I just wanted to clarify that. You don't have to pay the 100% when you do the appeal. There's an option, either 85% or 100%.
Okay, and while the appeal process is going through, if it rules in my favor, I guess they'll send the difference, or will they apply it to future? How do they do that?
Oh.
You don't,
They can tell you that process. I'm just sharing with you your two options that you
Okay.
have when you do the appeal process. You can check either 85% you're going to pay of the taxes that they've already calculated, or you'll pay 100%. So you do have options.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Jones, go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Nash, good to see you, and thank you so much for coming out and sharing your concerns. That really helps us to make sure that we are clear on the reasoning behind all of this. I really appreciate the presentation you made and the questions that you asked. The comment I wanted to make, that in evaluating or looking at the taxes your neighbor pays versus what you pay, that's not necessarily apples to apples, right? And the reasoning is because your neighbor may be eligible for numerous exemptions that allow them to pay less taxes, even though their property value may be higher than yours. And so I just wanted to make sure that, you were aware of that, and that, unless you have the entire, all of the information, you may not necessarily be comparing apples to apples, so be careful with that.
Yeah, and that's a great point you brought up, and I just try to make it brief because you're right, I looked at that. You may have someone that was a veteran, like one of my neighbors was a veteran. He might pay 23 cents. And I said, wow, maybe I should have joined the military, or joined the police. I said, this guy paying 23 cents, and I talked to him personally. So, yeah, I did do some homework around all that again, but thanks, because a lot of times people will come up and they want to put the complaint or the concern in and not have all the information. But I kind of did look over a lot of that stuff. But a lot of times it's just best for me to listen. I'm trying to learn to listen more than talk. So a lot of things I do know, I don't want to jump out there because I know you guys, you deal with this. I don't deal with it until it starts touching my pocket. So
Most of us
one of them
don't,
times I'm trying to work and concentrate on getting all the kids through college
Yeah.
and just getting the money in. So, I appreciate you guys, giving me a bit of light on what's going on and in a way that I can understand it.
Well, and not only you, for all our listening audiences as well, and anyone who may look at this later, the fact that you brought that up and you raised that question, it is incumbent upon us to try to shed the entire light so that everybody understands. So.
Thank you again. Yeah, that's a good point. I just didn't bring up, when we do these meetings, because I have them at my job and we call them briefs. I try to make it short, quick, brief. But it's good that you touched on that. But I'm aware of that. And again, when I saw it, I said, well, maybe I should have got in the military, joined law enforcement with these guys. But we have to do things for them because they protect us. And, I understand. And I'm not looking at everybody else. I just look what I do. But then when I look at my neighbors, it's kind of just throw up a red flag sometimes, especially when their property's got more rooms, more footage, more square feet. And they doing home improvement. I don't have a gate up at my house. So they're doing things, so that's where I think the code enforcement comes in. They'll ride through, but maybe they're not stopping, and, maybe, I don't know. I do know for a fact that some people don't get permits. That's one of the reasons why I became president of our HOA, to make people follow our rules, which tie in with your rules. See, well, you all had a set of ordinance, and so we have covenants, and they have to combine and lock in. But it's a headache because my main thing is putting my family in a position where I can protect them, keep them safe. There's a lot of things going on with people mentally and everything, so I had to bag off of that for a while. And until God put it back on my heart to do it again, then I will. But right now, I try to keep everybody safe because people, they get real picky when you try to tell them what to do with their property, how you do things. And I say, it's not my rules. It's the city of Fairburn and it's the covenants. It's not my rules. I don't make rules. But we have to all follow them. If I have to follow them, we all follow them. So sometimes they don't go over well with people. You know what I'm talking about. You guys do it. So thanks again, Mayor, City Council, and thank you again, too, sir. Appreciate you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, sir. Well, with that being said, I'd like, no, I don't take a motion. In this case, I just adjourn. In this case, our meeting is adjourned until this evening. We'll have another military meeting at 6 a.m. 6 PM, excuse me. 6 PM today. Thank you so much.
I might miss that one at 6.